Hello, my friends. This is the Everyday Prepper channel. Welcome aboard. Thanks for joining me on the Homestead series. Today we're talking about heat. How to heat your home, how to keep yourself warm is the main objective here. Now, there's a lot of really common sense things that we're going to run through and talk about some alternative viewpoints on how to maintain your core body temperature within an environment. And we're not talking about so much clothing in this one. We'll have a separate video for that. But we're going to talk about the things you can do with your home now, and if you're thinking about building a home, maybe different types of structures that you could actually consider, and different sources of heat. So the first thing here is when we talk about our home that we already have, especially if you have a conventional home, the level of insulation and also the natural wind barriers outside. Do you have a tree line that pretty much cuts off a lot of the wind? Do you live next to a hilled area or a mountain that really, acts as a block? Being able to block and to reflect a lot of wind is going to make a big difference on how much your home has to deal with. And talking about the insulation, you want to test it every couple years. You want to go up in the attic and look at the rafters and on the floor, wherever your insulation is, and see how compacted it is. Sometimes you may have to add a little more. The more compacted your insulation, the less insulation value that it actually yields. Now, besides warm clothing and bedding, you have to consider the type of actual structure you have. And so outside of the conventional homes, we have to consider a lot of different types of structures that would be considered possibly alternative, but they're very practical. And so the first would be to use solar capture. It's kind of like a greenhouse effect. You have a lot of windows that face where the sun is during the day, and it captures the solar energy, and it warms the space in your home. It also stores the energy, the solar energy, into dense material. So you may have like a really thick foundation made of concrete, for example. It could be several feet thick, and that could act as actually a mass for the solar energy to be stored into. So at night, it can be released, and so that you won't be cold. So that's a possibility. You also have to consider bermed homes. Sometimes they're considered basement homes, but there's also homes that are actually purposely built to be bermed on the walls. Now, they have a lot more structural integrity than a conventional home. That's just what they call stick-built. But bermed homes definitely have an advantage. You can go one step further and get an earth-covered home, and the actual whole structure and the sides are covered, besides possibly just one front that's open, which would probably be like your entrance and exit, and you may have some small windows up there. Now, some people actually take the whole front and put windows instead of just small windows. It just depends on your preference. And so you can kind of almost make it like a hybrid. So you could do like a solar collector in the front and earth covered, and you could definitely stay warm all year round. And you can always close off those windows and use various blinds and shades to reflect the light back out so it doesn't get in, and so during the summer you can stay cool. So bermed and earth-covered homes, greenhouse effects. So what else do we need, though, on the inside, especially if we have a conventional home? Well, first of all, I would have to say that probably my number one recommendation would be a wood stove. But I would recognize that not everyone has a source of wood. Not everyone, like myself, has a lot of woods to actually go into and cut up some wood. I have pretty much an indefinite supply of wood. And so it's really awesome. So a wood stove is really, really ideal. And even if you have to buy a few truckloads of wood a year, even if it's just as a backup source, it would be highly recommended. Because not only can you stay warm, but it can also provide an extra means to cook and boil water and so forth. The next is natural gas or propane gas. And I'm not talking about just those systems that run off of like a city utility type of system. I'm talking about freestanding tanks. Larger the better, or several instead of just one. That's good as well, in case you have one that's compromised. But propane and natural gas tanks are going to be awesome because they're off the grid. And so depending on your cooking and your heating needs, they could last you many, many months. I actually know people who have tanks that are so large that they can actually provide their family of four for over 6 months before they need a refill. And they said if they ever needed to, they could always cut back and get close to a year out of a tank if they ever had to basically, restrict their use. So it's very interesting. Now, what about electric heaters? Now, you could possibly do this on some level if you have solar collectors, like like if you have solar panels and you have that kind of system, which more people are getting. You'd probably have to have a lot of panels and a lot of batteries to really store that energy to actually produce a lot of heat in the sense of traditional like space heaters and so forth. But it is possible. Let's talk about outside, and then we'll wrap it up here. So outside, we have to first, acknowledge that people think, okay, big fire, lots of heat. Yeah, but you're also being very inefficient. So first off, let's just get this out of the way. It's better to have several small fires if you're looking for actual warmth than one big fire. A big, robust, monster of a fire is going to be very inefficient. And I cannot recommend that. So if you're looking for a personal fire, maybe, 2 or 3 fires that surround the group can be easily maintained, just small little fires. And that's going to be just enough, to get by, especially if you're camping or in an emergency. It's better to have a few fires that circle the group to stay warm than just one massive bonfire. The next thing would be fire pits. There's all kinds. You can make your own. Like you could probably build this up a lot more and make a massive pit, even dig in more. Or you could just use like this kind of like a camp style, fire type of area here. So campfire areas are going to be fine. I really enjoy this. This kind of works for me. But if you need an actual fire pit, you can get them out of like stainless steel and other materials that are, like big bowls almost. And they come in so many different sizes. Some of them really small and some massive. I've seen some that are over 6 feet wide and several feet deep. So it depends on your needs. But just remember, though, you do need to clean that out from time to time. And a lot of them do not have holes in the bottom. So when it rains, you're going to have to make sure you dump out the water, especially if it's not stainless steel. I've actually had some in the past when I first got into this that actually rusted out really bad. So you have to maintain them. And so something to consider. So fire pits, campfires, and you can also lastly just be mindful that you can always dig in and make trench fires. And that's a little bit better and easier for cooking. But you could actually make strips of trench fires. Once again, to outline a certain area to provide like continuous heat in an area, especially if you're outside. But for inside, though, it's good just to use common sense and have at least 1 or 2 redundancies from your conventional system. And these days, it's pretty much either natural gas or electric. I think those 2 are the big ones. Some places still do coal, and some places even still do like steam. So that's interesting still. But for me, though, I think it's about 60 to 70% wood stove, and the rest is going to just be me possibly using a space heater, electric space heater, off and on, just to cut the chill out if I'm just too lazy to put wood in the stove and light it. So hey, thanks for coming along. If you have any more ideas. And I know I'm missing some things here on purpose because I don't want to make it too complicated. But things like small portable, propane and natural gas heaters. I'm aware of all that. People, if you want to know more, you just check into yourself. But there's all kinds of things available, small space heaters, portable heaters. They even have like hand warmers, all kinds of stuff out there. So this is just kind of a primer just to say, we need to have some backup systems. At the very least, have at least one backup system that can get you through at least a few weeks to a few months, depending on your environment. If you have very long and very intense winters, you really would want to have a really, really robust backup system, if not several. So, hey, thanks a lot for your support. Catch you later.